You don't need the.
I'm doing this my way. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend. He a legend, he a legend, he a legend.
Fucking on it though. Then
He
you
a
can't fuck it up
legend.
later.
Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of Iron. Welcome to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league, to the league of Iron.
Pike on money, pike on money, pike on money.
What's up, everybody? It's Pikel with League of Items, and I'm rusty with my transitions and everything. But we survived the intro, I think. Hopefully, there are people still watching the video at this point. We're about 30 seconds in. Today, we're going to talk about MSI. We're going to talk about all the different teams, the groups, who we think will get out of the groups, who we don't think will get out of groups, and who will win MSI, and all that kind of fun stuff. Today, I'm joined once again by Alex, making his return to the channel. Hello, Alex. How are you doing today?
Howdy, I'm good. I get to talk about betting on League of Legends, so it's a good day.
Well, you don't have to. You could throw a wrench in this entire video and just refuse to do it, but I don't think that you'll do that. So let's just kind of get a lay of the land. So again, we're going to go through each group. We're going to talk about the teams that we like, the teams that we don't like, the matchups that we like, who we're willing to bet on, and who we won't. But before we do that, to give some to give a little bit of a primer, Alex is going to go through his tier list. I gave out my tier list, I think, in a separate video, and I did a very early first look a couple weeks ago. So if you want to see more of my thoughts in depth, go back and watch that other video. So Alex, take it away. Start from the bottom, I think, and just kind of give the explanation for how you came to your list.
Sure, yeah. So first off, this is based off of my model's output. It just kind of tries to get a sense of team strength and then adjust for region. So at the bottom, we have Team A's, Saigon Buffalo, Order, and the Red Canids. I think all of these teams very clearly belong at the bottom. Some of these, they're just the wildcard regions, and I guess they're here because I don't know what number I would need to get in order to bet on them to win MSI. I think these are below like 1/10% to win the whole thing. Just not very strong teams when you consider, who else is at the top of the list.
Yeah. So for those teams, I mean, I think if you just take a look at the numbers that are being offered by the sports book, you get kind of an idea of like it's not even good enough to consider yet because plus 25,000, or even plus 100,000, like does that sound nice? Yes. Is it possible that Order somehow wins MSI? Is it? Maybe it's just really not. I mean, what if it's not? Maybe it is zero, maybe it isn't zero. I don't think anybody's comfortable laying out that kind of money. What's the statistical break-even point for 1%? For like
10,000, right?
What?
So plus 10,000, right?
Yeah.
So it's pretty, pretty long shots here. Order I see plus 52,000 on Pinnacle. You mentioned 100 plus 100,000, so 0.2%, 0.1% chance to win the whole thing.
Yeah.
That I don't even think I'm getting that when I run my numbers. So they are not that they're bad teams, but just when you compare them to the competition, they're just significantly weaker.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. C tier.
Sure. Yeah. So I have the Wildcats and Detonation Focus Me, who are from Turkey and Japan. This is where you start to see like, okay, preview. This is I see a little bit of value on maybe Detonation Focus Me being underrated by the markets. These are, especially in the case of Detonation Focus Me, strong teams from strong regions or outlier strong teams. Like Detonation Focus Me really demolished the LJL in a relatively weak region. And so that's kind of the decision point is how much of Detonation Focus Me's domination in their regional league is due to them being really, really good or their competition being very bad. And so that's kind of how, I kind of view it as like, okay, this team is slightly better than the market. This is where you kind of get like, okay, maybe 1% chance to win MSI or 0.5% chance to win MSI. Again, really, really unlikely, and I'm not even sure if those numbers are good enough to bet on, but these are where you start to see like, okay, this team is from a pretty good region or is just destroying like an okay region, and maybe that team is like a once in a generation or one time very, very strong team from a weaker region.
Yeah, so I think specifically with the main league in Japan and Turkey, there have been other teams that have performed well in different types of tournaments for whatever reason, and people just like want to believe in them at the same time. So, and I think that is kind of baked into the market. So my expectation personally is for teams from Turkey, Istanbul Wildcats and PSG. I think it's not more likely. I think it's more likely that the correct side is going against them because of the good performances they've had in the performances those regions have had in some international tournaments. So a lot of people still want to talk about the strength of PSG from, I think, last year's MSI or like a good Worlds performance in the play-in qualifiers or against weaker competition. That's not what I care about. Like, I only want to know how will they do against a team from one of the 4 major regions, and is there a reason to think that we should put them above those kinds of teams? That's really the break-even point for me. So if like I wouldn't be shocked if, you know, we somehow got some objective perspective where it's like, in reality, Detonation Focus Me, Istanbul Wildcats, Red Canids, Order, Saigon Buffalo, Team A's, and then maybe even PSG, G2, or Evil Geniuses, maybe in some kind of, from some perspective, they are more accurately placed into the D tier, right? Like, maybe all of those teams belong in the D tier. Maybe all of those teams belong in the C tier. Maybe the only reason why those numbers are inflated is because of perception. It's just, you know, it's tough to say. So this is kind of the hand that we're dealt, and we have to make decisions based off the numbers that are offered by the sports books that are in line with market, because they're not oblivious to public perception. So
I think, yeah, it is kind of like, this tier is kind of very clearly way worse. That, like, MSI is basically about Korea and China this year, right? Like, those are the two teams that are most likely, you know, almost certainly going to win the whole thing. I think this tier is like, they can take a few games off of the tiers, the tier directly above them, and if things break right for them, they can take a game off of RNG or T1. I definitely don't see that. Like, these are like some really long shot odds to win the whole thing. They're definitely like long shot odds to qualify from the group a lot of the time, or to win the group a lot of the time. I would be extremely shocked if either of these teams won. I don't have any bets on either of these teams winning. But just it's kind of, every once in a while, as you said, like a team from one of these regions will overperform. And so, like, these regions and teams from these regions have that capability to put together very, very respectable performances at international tournaments.
yeah, and I think the one thing that's lost a lot of the times, and maybe I should just say it more directly, is that they outperform their expectations, but though exceeding the expectations is still not good enough.
Yeah, it's low expectations, right?
Yeah, it's still not good enough to put them on the same level as these other teams. And it's a good thing and a bad thing that these are best of ones, because you don't really get that gigantic sample size. Sure, maybe taking longer shots on some of these underdogs is a good play on day one if there's like a misprice or something like that, because you do kind of have to ask yourself the question, what is the chance that I think any professional team can beat any other professional team? Like, it's not a 0% chance. So if somebody hung a line that was plus 10,000 on an underdog, both of us would feel obligated to take that number. It's a ridiculous number. Like, what does that number need to be for one of these teams? Like, I've seen plus 600, plus 700 for some of the individual best of one games. Like, that's the kind of thing where, do I want to light $100 on fire? Like, am I going to feel good about it? No. Am I going to be able to say to myself, it was $100 to win $700? Like, I kind of had to do it. Like, do you have a number in mind that something like that would make sense? Like, if I told you T1, what team would you have to get to in this list to where plus 700 is like, I still wouldn't touch it?
For winning a best of one?
Yeah.
Plus 700. I think I would take Detonation Focus Me at plus 700. I don't think I would take the Wildcats. I have break even at around like plus 650 or plus 600. So it's really close. But that's about, in a best of one where I would put these teams against the best team in the tournament.
Yep. If I think it'd be tough for me to not try to go after that. Like, how often, I know that you pay more attention to it than I do, how often do we see like plus 700 lines in best of ones in the LEC or the LCS? How often does that happen?
Very, very rarely.
It
I
really
remember this.
it caps out like what plus 500 is really the highest that we'll see sometimes.
Yeah, I do remember one game in particular because I had a decent sized investment and it was Astralis against Fnatic was like plus 570 or something like that. So that's about where it gets to when like worst place best in a best of one.
Yeah,
And side selection, I don't. It's one of those weird things where like I don't know if side selection really matters when the gap between the two team qualities was so big. Um, so it really caps out at around there for like two professional teams at that type of level.
yeah. So let's speed through the rest of these because we're going to be talking about the rest of these teams pretty consistently. So I'll do the beats here. So G2, PSG, and Evil Geniuses. Obviously, that's kind of what we'd expect. Tell us what percentage do you have to this tier, and then tell us your top two teams and the percentage ascribed to them.
Sure. Yeah. So I think this is where you start to see single digit to win percentages for me anyway. I'm underweight on G2. I have them at about 7% to win the whole thing. EG at about 3.5%, and same for PSG Talon, which I think is over the market on maybe both. Maybe EG's just coming to line, but these are pretty good teams from pretty good regions that, in a best of five, would be large underdogs to RNG and T1. But we've seen crazier things happen.
Sure. And then final two teams, RNG and T1.
Yeah, combined about an 80% chance to win NSI. I might be breaking the mold like I always do with China versus Korea, and I have RNG much closer, if not slightly better than T1. Just historically, when you look at the last few international tournaments, China has done very, very well, right? I don't remember the last time they lost, a Chinese team lost a best of five to a Korean team was when Dam won Worlds, which has been a while. Obviously, it's a small sample size, and like you can't really glean a lot from that. But
yeah, and I mean the other side of that is there were three teams from the LCK in the semifinals last year.
Exactly right. Like these regions are both incredibly strong. These teams are both incredibly strong. I bet against T1 a lot last year because they were. I didn't feel like they were as strong as their record indicates. I still don't think they are. I burned a lot of money doing that. I'm going to continue to do so.
Yeah. But that's the thing that separates us is that we're willing to put our money where our mouths are, and sometimes we get burned, and that's okay.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's just about the number you give me. If you gave me T1 to win plus 1,000, like obviously I'm going to smash that.
Yeah.
At minus 155 or whatever they are, I can't get there.
Yeah. So let's go into group one, and I'll do mine. I'll go with mine first, and I'll try to go through this a little quicker. So we have a couple different categories. We have who do we think will win, right? So this should be obvious. We both think T1 is going to win, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And that's reasonable, and we don't really need to explain that. Everybody thinks that they will win. The sportsbook's putting it at roughly 98% chance that T1 wins. That's why they're minus 5,000. Favorite. Who is your favorite team to win? Taking, the odds to come out, who do you want to win this group, and why?
Yeah, I took a small position on Detonation Focus Me. I had them about 11% to win the group. It's just that question of, is this team really, really good and compared to an okay region, or is it just a region is really, really bad and they've just overperformed? It doesn't happen often. I have about a quarter unit stake on it. I'm prepared to, it's plus 1,400. I don't expect to win. I think it's worth the Yahtzee play, like the lottery ticket play.
Yeah.
I also think Saigon Buffalo is interesting. Vietnam's always strong-ish as a region. This is not a good team from Vietnam. GAM Esports was like the undefeated regular season team. Won playoffs, had a scheduling conflict, and now Saigon Buffalo takes their place. But those are the two teams I'm looking at.
Sure. And then willing to bet on in individual games. Like, are there any teams that you're not touching from this group? Like, given the right number, obviously you'd bet on anybody. But based on what we know, like, are you going to be taking Team A's against Saigon Buffaloes or Detonation Focus Me?
Yeah, it depends on the line, but I really am not high on Team A's. I had them as like the fourth strongest team in League of Latin America, and I don't know how they made it, but I think they were the second seed. So that's awesome. They're not a bad team. They're just weaker compared to the likes of T1. Saigon Buffalo, like Vietnam, is a real. They're a wildcard region, but a real wild card because we haven't seen Vietnam in international tournaments in a while. I'm slightly higher on Detonation Focus Me than the market. Maybe I get burned here, and I'll take some shots on them if the number's good. But yeah, not touch minus 5,000 on T1 to win the group, even though I think it's extreme, like over 90% chance that they do. I just wouldn't touch that line.
Yeah. So then, I think we can kind of skip ahead to the last question. Who would we fade from this group? We're not fading T1. It's just we're not. I guess we are fading T1 because we're not betting on them to win the group. But it's not that we think that the line is extremely far off. There's just no value to be gained by betting on them. Are you going to risk $5,000 to win 100? If you have that kind of money where you want to do that, great. Like, is that even fun? That just seems very stressful. So we're not going to talk about that. And then the most exciting matchup. So obviously the only matchup worth talking about in this group at this point with like comes some perceived importance is T1 against DFM. So what did you have for that matchup specifically?
Yeah, so this is one of the interesting ones where I have T1 at 84% to win a best of one. So obviously way stronger team. And in a best of five, that means I have them at like 96% to win. That's not shocking, but you're playing best of ones and crazy things can happen. That's where I would put the line. So if I got more than plus 600 to bet on, or plus 500 to bet on Detonation Focus Me, I would take a small position. I don't expect to win, but I do think there's some like very slight value there.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to Group B. And I guess the sad thing is that there really aren't a ton of interesting matchups that we can kind of think of from our perspective, like finding value in a line because the markets are pretty good at capturing public perception for League of Legends specifically, because there is so much bias towards which region is stronger than the other region. So in Group B, we have RNG at minus 2,000, PSG at plus 1,000, Wild at plus 2,000, and Red Canids at plus 2,500. We both think that RNG is going to win. I personally, I don't want RNG to win because I can't go back to people saying that Gala is like the best AD carry in the world.
That's weird, man. It is weird.
Yeah, it's a weird perspective because like everybody wants to give Xiaohu a ton of credit, which he deserves. But like the Gala's style, and even people who watch these videos and watch a ton of League of Legends like disagree with me on this. I don't see how you could watch him play League of Legends and then watch like Viper or Ruler play League of Legends and then think to yourself, not only like these guys are on similar levels, but that other guy's better. Like Gal is better than them. It's not something that I really understand. So I kind of dread RNG winning this and performing well at this tournament because I think it says more about every other region than it does about RNG specifically, like looking forward to Worlds. So in that sense, I do think that they're going to win. I do think that they kind of are my favorite in a sense. Like I do want them to win because it might give me value in the future, like during the LPL regular season and playoffs and at Worlds. The teams that I'm willing to bet on, personally, I'm not going to be taking any shots going at underdogs against RNG unless the numbers get absolutely insane. I'm not going to put any money on PSG, Wild, or Red to win the group. You would maybe look at taking Wild or Red Canids to make it out of the group over PSG. I think that's kind of an interesting angle. The most exciting matchup, obviously, that's RNG against PSG as well. But I don't think that PSG really has a good shot at winning that matchup. Because I really do think that we're hitting the point where they're just overrated based on their the play-in tournament from Worlds and their strong performance at MSI, where a lot of those players aren't here anymore. They have a lot of roster turnover that has big implications for like playing the game League of Legends, which is what we're looking for. We're looking for the players, not the team name. So they have a different mid jungle, and they also don't have Doggo, who was a part of the reason why they were strong at international tournaments in the past. And he was a true carry player. Unified isn't the same level or style of player. And then fade, if I could fade all of these teams, I would. That's basically it. I mean, I don't really want any of these teams to be successful in the Rumble or the knockout stage.
Yeah, it's interesting because I just don't watch the PCS really, and I didn't really watch a ton of LPL. I mean, to go back to what you said about Gallat, like I totally agree. We kind of know or had known what kind of player this guy is when he was on DMO. I view him as like this okay to good AD carry, but definitely not a world beater. But I do think they're the best team in this group, like by far.
Yeah.
I have, I'm higher on PSG Talent just because of how dominant they are in their region. They don't have Maple or River anymore, so that's it remains to be seen if that's like a big loss. And to me, it sounds like you think that is, but it's hard to argue with how good they've been within their region and how good that region has been at international events. But as always, we have a very small sample size of international events, so tracking region strength and changes is really, really tough, and it's a bit more of a field game than pure numbers. So I might get burned there, but I do have some. I definitely have RNG to win the tournament. I think RNG at big plus money, like plus 175 to win, is nuts to me. And then PSG Talent to win the group at plus 1,000. I'll take a small shot. Why not?
Yeah, because all you really need them to do is to go 1-1 against RNG, dominate the other two teams, and RNG loses a shocking game to somebody, and okay, PSG just won the group. And then, it's such an easy thing to see actually happening, not because RNG is bad, but, just because, shit happens. And then we'll have to listen to, oh my god, PSG beat RNG in their group at MSI, and then, they'll go to Worlds, and then we'll have to listen to people talk about PSG, dark horse to win the tournament. And I'll just want to cry. So I'm kind of dreading that. The last thing that I would say about the change of mid jungle, going from River Maple to Juhan and Bay, is that my stance isn't that Juhan and Bay are worse players than River and Maple. What did I just say? River and Maple? Did I say River and never mind. Don't even bring it up again. My position isn't that they are definitely worse than River and Maple. It's that the reason why we think of PSG the way that we do is because of their team when they had River and Maple. So if we have these known quantities and now we have players who we haven't seen on the international level, it's a good thing from the perspective of, it's more, there should be more uncertainty. Maybe they have a better range of outcomes. Because if it was River and Maple, would I think, yes, they will be better against Wild and Red, but then they'd be even more overvalued against a team like RNG. So it kind of balances itself out in the long run. And then the last thing I'd say, I guess the other last thing that I would say, is PSG had bad results at Worlds. The only team that they beat, I think, was Fnatic, and they went 2-0 against Fnatic. So they went 2-4 in the main stage. And I think that the only reason why they beat Fnatic so easily is because they didn't have upset. So you're playing a backup AD carry and Fnatic. So I do expect them to be overrated. That's my angle, at least. And then last but not least, we have Group C. Group C is the most interesting. I love EG. I want EG to win. I'm willing to bet on EG. I'm not willing to bet on G2 at minus 334 to win the group. I think EG is the only correct bet in this group. I think that's obviously the most exciting one, and I'm obviously fading G2 in this stage, and I would look for opportunities to play G2 in the next stage, because this could be a good opportunity for G2 and EG to kind of cannibalize the perception of each other during the group stage, maybe drop a game to order. Everybody has a lower opinion of them going into the Rumble and the knockout stages, and then in reality they're just relatively strong teams. So do you want to say something specifically about G2 versus EG? What's your take on that matchup? And then we should probably go back to RNG PSG. I don't know if we talked about the numbers for that one specifically.
Sure, we can. I mean, we can if we want. I'm pretty much on board with you. I have EG versus G2 as much closer than market. I had EG as the strongest team in the region, and I did not have G2 as the strongest team in their region. I understand that historically North America has been weaker than Europe, and I still think that's probably true. But I cannot get over plus 250 to win the group for EG. I think that's a great position to have. I would be, I don't really know what to say about Order. I don't have them as a very strong team from a relatively weak region. I not much more to say about them there, but yeah, I have EG at about 40% to win the group, and you can kind of fill in the blank on G2 and Order given that. But
yeah, I think that like when I looked at those numbers originally, and like the way that the market moved kind of reflects that. I got EG at plus 4,000 to win MSI. Like I don't even need them to win to make money off of it. To make money off of that, they'll probably give me some kind of cash out if we get to the semifinals or the finals. I'll get my chance to cash out. So there'll be opportunities for me to get out of that position if I really want to. I just think that in regards to region versus region, I think that the LEC as a region is stronger than the LCS as a region. That gets turned into teams. The best teams from the LEC are better than the best teams from the LCS. I don't think that is the case anymore, specifically. I think if you took EG, 100 Thieves, and then like Team Liquid, right, and you made a Super League where it was those three, and then however many teams you went from the LEC, I think that those teams would be very competitive and towards the top of the table, especially with what we saw from Fnatic, Rogue, G2, Vitality in playoffs. Like, and teams like Misfits and stuff like that. There are reasons to like some of those players, but I think so much of their identity has been kind of, or so much of their perception has just been kind of given to them at this point, and it's like taken as a given that they're better than the LCS teams, like on a team by team basis. And I just really don't think that's the case anymore. So I think that we'll have some good opportunities to make money off of that.
I definitely agree that this year is probably the first year in a while that I don't think it's that clear. I manually adjusted, how I make these region adjustments is I look at the last few international tournaments, and I went in and manually adjusted the LCS up and the LEC down just because of how I feel those regions have changed over the year. And so I'm on board with you. I think the LCS has some strong teams, has some strong talent. Do I think they're going to win MSI? No, probably not. Single-digit % to win, but I cannot get on board with how strong the market thinks G2 is. I'm willing to fade that.
Yeah, that's the craziest one for me. Like, I really don't understand that. And even if they go out there and make it to semifinals, is that reflected in 7.69%? Is that accurately reflected, do you think?
I mean, it's just because of how good RNG and T1 are, that they take up 80% or 90% of the win probabilities. That I do have G2 as quote unquote the third best team at this tournament, but that's not by much, right? Especially in terms of win percentage. It's really hard to find value in G2 winning this whole thing.
Yeah.
Even if they make the semis, I think they would be a pretty large dog to T1 and RNG.
Yeah, because I guess what I'm trying to get at is if G2 makes it to the semifinals and loses 3-1, people aren't going to come away from that saying, wow, G2 is horrible. They're so far away from T1 and RNG. They don't have a chance to win Worlds or be competitive at Worlds. The takeaway is going to be like, well, G2 made it to semifinals, and now they're at Worlds, and now they can beat anybody. That's how it's going to get spun. So that's concerning.
Their path is really easy, right? They just have to beat Order to make it to the Rumble, and then they just have to beat they just have to be, 4th out of 6 to make it to semis. So
yeah,
they really don't have to try that hard to make it to semis, which is probably why it's these futures odds are reflected that way, because their group stages is relatively free. But you're totally right that their path to make it to the semis and bow out in a respectable 3-1 to RNG or T1 or whoever is really easy to see, and people will have that perception that they're back, baby. They made it to the semis of an international tournament. I like a lot of these players, and I think a lot of them have had incredible peaks and probably some of the best Western League of Legends players of all time. But totally willing to fade the market here on them this year.
Yeah, it's such a dog shit situation for me, because when everybody was talking shit about G2 all of 2020 and 2021, and I was like, well, Wonder's still good, and Yonkos is still good, and Caps is still good too. Everybody's like, oh my god, these guys suck. They need to retire. Get them out of here. They're horrible. And now it's like they do a complete 180, and there's no penalty for the wrong takes that they've had in the past. The whole being able to change your mind all the time and not have to pay any kind of penalty really grinds my gears.
That is one of the things I like about the gambling community is you do have to put your money where your mouth is.
Exactly.
If you want to have a strong take, you are almost certainly expected to put a money there. So totally willing to fade them this tournament and get burned, but I'm with you.
Yeah. So I think that's really it for the most part. We got through all the teams. I know that it's really not an exhaustive breakdown of every individual team. I did a little bit more of that in one of the other videos, and I might do that, after we get some footage of these teams playing against one another. Like after day one, there will be a lot of takeaways, and angles to avoid just because, oh well, this team beat that team. Well, now the number had to change a lot, right? Well, wrong. That's not how it works. But we'd have to take a look at that closer to the actual games being played. So are there any final takeaways that you have, either from the futures perspective or a group angle or anything like that you want to leave off on?
I mean, I think it's pretty well covered. This is just to me, it's relatively straightforward MSI. There's two really, really strong teams, and then there's a bunch of other teams that have some slight value on some real long shot props.
So let's talk about T1 versus RNG. We didn't talk about that matchup specifically.
Sure.
So what number do you have for T1 against RNG in what would that be, a best of 3 or a best of 5? I guess that depends where they meet, if it's in the semifinals or finals.
I think it's a best of 5, right, for both of them.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I would have it as a 60-40 for RNG, which I think might shock people just because of how dominant T1 is. But I mean, again, it's just how my model works in terms of I take future or past results from international tournaments, kind of get a region rating, and then apply that to how teams have done domestically. And I look stupid because T1 went undefeated and just totally crushed playoffs, but I think there were some points in those games in the regular season, especially where they did not look that strong, and they kind of just you called it turnover differential before when we talked about Misfits and LEC. Like, I viewed them very similar. Like, this is a great team. Don't get me wrong. Like, this is one of the best teams, if not the best team in the world. But
yeah,
do I think they're just the best team of all time? I'm willing to fade that perception for sure.
Yeah, or that they're going to dominate everybody else. Like, if they end up winning Worlds, we wouldn't be surprised. It's just we don't think that they're being valued the right way on the betting markets, and the perception isn't in line with their range of outcomes. Their range of outcomes still includes winning Worlds. We're not saying that they can't win Worlds. It's just that they're overvalued by everybody. And again, bad situation for me. Going into Worlds last year, I'm like, well, Keria is probably the best support in the world. Nothing really happens. Now he goes and he wins the MVP. So it's you never win these scenarios.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah. So that's it. Just one final reminder. I'm on EG. Go EG. I have him at plus 4,000. If EG wins, I'll have some kind of party and giveaway kind of situation. But that's it. Alex, tell them where they can find you on twitter.com.
Yeah, so I post on twitter.com/jscoutslolbot. Just tweet random things about betting on esports, that kind of stuff. With you on EG, I would love for them to make the finals, especially. But for me, go RNG, go PSG, go EG.
Yeah. So if anybody has trouble finding him on Twitter, go to my page. You will find him. Just scroll up and down my timeline, and you'll find it. So, thanks everybody for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have vastly differing opinions from us, feel free to leave a comment about it in the comment section. Most of the stuff is just about why do you hate G2 so much? Why do you hate RNG so much? Why do you like EG so much? But let's just have that conversation for the 1,000th time. So thanks again for watching, and I'll talk to you later.